What's up, geeks and gamers? It's Odin coming to you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about how Glass is shattering the box office for the weekend. Yes, I know it's corny, everyone is using it, and I figured, hey, you might as well hear it once again for probably the 50th time if you have been online recently. Anyway, so Glass is actually doing very well. Now, there's some people out there that are trying to spin it, trying to say, oh, it's not as big as they thought it was going to be, or it's not the big success. But the numbers just don't really support that, especially when you look at how much it costs to make and how much it's actually making when you take in the overseas counts. Unfortunately, we live in a world that for some reason, every time that you see, especially American publications, talking about movies and box office numbers, they only focus on domestic totals. And though domestic totals do give us a bit of an idea of where the American audience stands on a given movie, it doesn't give you the whole picture. You need to always take into account domestic and foreign totals. It's the same reason why you go ahead and look to a film like Venom, and they crapped all over Venom and said, oh, Venom's not going to do very well, and then it turned out to be an $800 million movie because it did really well, did crazy overseas. But because they kept ignoring that and just not talking about it, they tried to let their narrative stick, and then eventually they just let it drop and act like, oh wait, what? I never bad talked this movie. What are you talking about? But we see something similar happening with Glass, and we'll get into kind of the rankings and the Rotten Tomatoes scores and why it's just interesting. It's always great to see movies that critics hate do well at the box office, because it just kind of helps to say, yeah, we don't care. Most people do not care what critics have to say anymore, and I'm sure many of you in the comments will agree with me. But what is interesting about boxofficemojo.com, which is a really great website, especially if you follow box office information, is that they love to do these versus things, these showdowns between different films. And there's two actually on here that interest me the most. The first one, of course, is the Split versus Glass. So if y'all never got a chance to see Split, oh my goodness, it is fantastic. It is absolutely wonderful. Of course, Unbreakable is great as well, and there's a tie-in to Unbreakable at the very end of Split that's kind of known at this point, seeing that we have Glass, and so obviously there has to be some connection between the two if we're going to be able to justify making it in the first place. But if you actually look at these totals, and these are just looking at the domestic numbers. Right now, at this point, Glass is outpacing Split, and many people would consider Split to be a pretty good box office result. And also, guess what? It got actually good reviews from critics and audiences alike, at least a little bit better than what Glass is getting right now. With that being said, though, Glass is currently outperforming it, and Glass actually outperformed everything else this weekend by a large margin. Glass domestically made $40.5 million. The upside still in the news here, still not doing terribly, which is interesting because once again we see, oh, wait a minute, Kevin Hart can actually bring in an audience. Yeah, that's right, Oscars. You were stupid to have gone after him for some non-homophobic stuff that he said, and oh my goodness, so stupid. But anyway, doing well domestically, not doing great foreign market-wise, and in the end, though, this actually might very well make its money back. Now, I haven't seen it yet. I can't tell you whether it's good or not, but I do think that critics have been very unfair to this movie. One, because they hate Kevin Hart, because they're, you know, crazy identity politics-driven people, and two, because Bryan Cranston is playing a person who is paralyzed, but he himself is not paralyzed, so of course they're going after that as well, even though that's how movies have been done for a very long time. And it's not that they said, oh, we're not going to cast someone who could actually, you know, fit this role, you know, to perfection because the person actually happens to be paralyzed. It's that, well, that's just not how movies have really ever been made. And if there was an actor out there, if there was someone who could probably pull off this role, I'm sure that they would have gone for it. But guess what? They also realize that this is an investment and they want to be able to make a profit off of it. And you're not going to make a profit off of someone that no one's ever heard of before. So it's one of those things where you can understand where they're coming from, but also it's like, just let it go. Don't let, and what's really that bothers me the most about it, it's not that they want that, because again, I think wanting that is fine in and of itself. The problem that I have with it is that they are allowing things like that to influence how they review a movie. And I talked about this, if you follow me on Patreon, for my $5 backers and up, I did a podcast episode talking about critics versus audiences. And one of the things that I said is, the problem with modern day critics especially is that they allow their own personal biases. They allow identity politics, essentially, to drive their reviews. The problem, though, is that critics have always meant to be those people who look at things more from an objective standpoint, break things down point by point, talk about pacing, cinematography, acting, things that you can actually objectively talk about, not let their subjectivity just run rampant all over the reviews. But unfortunately, that's what we're seeing in today's market, which is why, if that's what reviews are now, if that is what movie critics are supposed to be, well, then you better have a mixed group of people there. But of course, that's never going to happen, because why would they allow someone who disagrees with them to be in that little clique of people? But anyway, the upside, that's the reason why it's not doing well as nearly as it could, because you know, they gave it so much hate, so much negativity, but it is still producing nonetheless. It is still number 2 for the weekend and will likely end up being number 2 for the holiday season since we are in a 3-day weekend because of MLK. That is, unless Aquaman, which is only $2 million behind it, at least for the Sunday estimates, can somehow come back to it as well. But that was the other one I wanted to talk about, is the fact that we see in the DCU, or the DCEU is what it's now being called, we see the 31-day total between Aquaman and Suicide Squad. So Suicide Squad, 297, ended around $300 million domestically. Right now, Aquaman is over that with $304 million. This film, as I said before, I think it's going to hit $1 billion overseas. I think that as long as it hits $1 billion in the foreign market, boom, it's hit 1.3, and it is still not done making money. It is still out in a lot of theaters. People are still going to see it, and to my knowledge, it still has not opened in certain markets. Last time I checked Japan, it has not opened yet, and Japan could give it up to $100 million by itself. So therefore, this movie still has a lot of potential to make even more than what it's already making on top of that. As I said, the upside, probably not going to be a huge moneymaker, but with a budget of $37.5, it is likely that this film will at some point either break even or at least make a small profit. There's only been 2 real major releases that have come out this week, so Glass obviously coming in with $40.5 million domestically, so doing very well there. And also, what's really exciting to see on this list is that Dragon Ball Super, Broly is actually on this list. It's actually made more than Aquaman, which makes sense because Aquaman's now been out for several weeks. It's now been out, 5 weeks? So for 5 weeks, that's still, you know, Aquaman's still making money. Dragon Ball Super, first week, $10.6 million. Really cool to see that happen because I've never seen I don't watch Dragon Ball Super currently because I'm still trying to watch everything before then and then be able to start Super from the beginning. And I've been told by many people that you don't have to watch all of the series from Super to be able to understand or appreciate the movie, but I'm kind of in that position where I don't know if I want to see it before watching Super or not. I've seen some of the other Dragon Ball movies, but I'm kind of stuck in this in-between zone. But anyway, doing very well, very exciting to see that, and as you see, doing very well domestically and also in the foreign market as well. So in total at this point, because it did get a foreign release first before it came to the United States, it made 65.8, which means this film is making around $86.9 million. I guarantee you the budget for this film is not nearly as high as the $20 million that it cost to make Glass, so you're looking at a very, very profitable film, and hopefully it means they keep on making these types of films because it's always great to see anime represented in this way. And I know that there's other animes out there that are doing very well and are original, etc., but it's really cool to see this because I am a huge Dragon Ball Z. I love Dragon Ball Z when I was growing up, watched it every single time, and it was great. Glass, as I said before, is not just doing well domestically, and that's the number that people are focusing on, saying, well, it only made 40.5, but keep in mind that means that it is on pace to be the 3rd best MLK weekend opening in all time, in all of history. So that is to be the 3rd best for an opening weekend on, you know, during a certain time period is not something to snuff at. And on top of that, and the thing that's being ignored by many people, is that foreign number, $48.5 million. Now, this is a film that I think in the long run could make more domestically than foreign, just because I feel that the actors there are, you know, in the movie are going to appeal more to American audiences than to foreign markets, but that also could be wrong as well. The point is, though, $89 million worldwide means this film is already making a profit. So for anyone that's going to try to spin, if you see anyone try and say that Glass isn't doing well or is not doing as well, etc., and they're talking about critics, basically just say, yeah, but I don't care what the critics have to say. I care what the audience have to say. And the audience, for the most part, like this movie. Last time I checked Rotten Tomatoes, like 78% of audiences like this film. I know there's a bunch of people that have mixed feelings about it, and I wouldn't be surprised because it's an M. Night Shyamalan film. And it's a film also that is the culmination of a series of events, and therefore it's just on paper going to be something that you either like or you don't like. So basically what we're seeing here, it's already making a profit because, as I said constantly before, production budget $20 million means that the marketing was $10 million. Total cost was $30 million. $89 million is what the current take is right now. 60% of that, well over that $30 million mark. So this film is already profitable, and it's only the first weekend. So this film could end up making over $100 million, which means it'll make about $300 million more than Solo did, seeing that Solo lost $200 million. So ipso facto. Actually, no, that would be even more than that. Oh, Lord. Either way, Glass is a success. Aquaman. So obviously I want to keep on talking about Aquaman. Right now it's at $1.063 billion worldwide. As I said before, we're still waiting for it to open up in certain markets, but it's still doing very well. And let me just double check that, because last weekend I checked, as you can see, it has not opened in Japan yet, and Japan could theoretically give it up to $100 million. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there's other markets that hasn't opened in either. So if you take that into account, and also the account that it's been out for 5 weeks here in the United States, and it's going to keep on making money, you're looking at a film that's going to, very likely, and that's why I said in my predictions, I already predicted it was going to break $1 billion. It's doing that in spades, and now I think even more so, it's going to beat The Last Jedi, beat Black Panther, and that will just make me happy because I think those films are vastly overrated. But as you see, $759 million in the foreign market so far. Hasn't opened in Japan, a couple other markets as well, and it's still making money in various places. That means that it very well could still at this point break that $1 billion, and if it does and the domestic number ends around 350, 340, you're looking at a film that in the end run will outpace movies like Black Panther and also and The Last Jedi, which would be great for a lot of reasons. The last thing I want to talk about, not for this weekend related, is that Marvel, oh boy, so Screen Rants. Obviously, our buddies over at Screen Rant, they are now making excuses already. And we knew this was going to happen because I was already talking about this when I saw that they were releasing this film a month after Endgame. I said, you know what, that's a bad idea. That is a bad idea for them to do that because I think that Endgame is going to eat this film up in the long-term box office, and that means this film can only make so much. Now, there's a lot of speculation as to why they're doing it this way. Maybe it's because they want the film to be the setup for Endgame. That very well could be, possible. Maybe they thought the film by its own would be good enough to be able to bring in audiences. I don't see this film bringing in audiences that aren't already a part of the MCU, and I don't see really bringing in new audiences either. I mean, they can keep on trying to say, oh, it's the Black Panther of this year, because that's what they do. Like, seriously, like, it boggles my mind that they are just so obsessed. They are so freaking obsessed with this identity politics. As you see right here in the screen article, Captain Marvel is 2019's version of Black Panther. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Stop trying to push the stupid narrative. Black Panther was the most highly rated movie of the year. Why? It wasn't because it was the best movie that came out in 2018. You ask any public poll, and I guarantee you Avengers Infinity War is going to be at the top of that list. Black Panther might be 2, maybe, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's closer to 3, 4, or 5. So it's not the best movie of the year, but you keep talking about, oh, it's the most highly rated movie of the year, made $1.3 billion. Yes, it was financially successful because it did very well here in the United States, because it did very well with the African-American community. Like, again, let's just be honest with what we're talking about here. So what you're trying to say is that it did well because it appealed to a certain audience. Stop trying to act like, oh my gosh, this is a historical thing, and oh my gosh, people like it because it's great, and oh my gosh, diversity sells tickets. It's like, no, good movies sell tickets. Black Panther was a B-level movie, but it also was able to appeal to, and also was very much pushed on certain demographics of the United States audience, and that's the reason why it did nearly as well as it did. Because, again, look at the fact it made like $800 million here in the United States, $400 million overseas. That's unheard of. That's very rare that happens. So if this film was, marketed any differently, you probably wouldn't have seen it break $1 billion. But that being said, very unique film here. Captain Marvel is not in the same boat. There is no women's contingent of the box office people. Like, I'm sorry, you're not, even if you keep on trying to appeal to women, like, oh, hurrah, look, every time she falls, she keeps standing back up. Isn't she brave? If you keep pushing that narrative, people are not going to go see this movie because they're going to say, oh, so basically the whole point of this movie is to say, oh, look, it's our first ever female-led MCU film. And that's what the whole narrative has been. Look at the very fact that you have the show media talking nonstop about her gender, which, again, I'm sorry, we have eyes, we have ears, we know who she is, we know that she's a woman. Let it go, people, please just let it go. But now, of course, we have them saying, oh my God, it's going to be the next Black Panther. It will be the next Black Panther in this way. We already know it's going to be artificially ranked high, and it's only going to be artificially ranked high because of the fact that it's the first ever MCU-led film. Let's just be honest. It's not going to be because it's the best movie of the year. It's not going to be because it's better than any other film that's come out previously. It's going to be because they have to give it love. They have to support it because they know that if they don't support it critically, that because of the fact that it's not going to make money at the box office, which is what Screen Rant is saying here, Marvel is releasing Captain Marvel too close to the Avengers Endgame. Because they realize now, oh, so remember how we were talking about those ticket sales? Like, here's the funny thing. These same people who are talking about this are the same ones who said, oh my God, those early ticket sales, they're outpacing Black Panther. This year's Black Panther, outpacing Black Panther, outpacing other films. And now all of a sudden, oh, it's too soon, and it might not make as much as we think. No, duh. No crap. I could have told you that much, because pre-sales don't mean anything. Solo outpaced Black Panther. Lost $200 million at the box office. Who cares if Captain Marvel's doing well in the pre-sales? As I said before, it might indicate a good opening weekend. But opening weekends do not make or break films. Because guess what? It's the first 2 weekends. Because it not only just depends and determines what, how well a film does. It's not just based on the first weekend. First weekend is important. But how much drop-off you get from week 1 to week 2, that is what determines whether a film is going to succeed or not. The way they're pushing this film, not just in their trailers, but most especially in the media, is not only going to push away American audiences, it's going to push away foreign audiences as well. Look to the comment section of most of these videos. And there are people in other countries saying, yeah, this stuff doesn't really appeal to us. So we already know that this film is probably not going to make more than Black Panther overseas. It might reach that $400 million overseas. If it doesn't, then it's going to be very big trouble. And it's definitely not going to get even close to the $800 million that Black Panther made here. So the comparisons between the two is unfounded. It just doesn't work. Stop trying to say, oh my gosh, like it's the first ever women's film, and that's the same thing as the first ever black led hero by the first black MCU director, etc., etc., etc. How about instead you identify the director as a talented director who is a talented director? Why does the person's skin color determine or merit whether the person is good or bad? It shouldn't. Why is the person's gender here in this movie determining whether the film is good or bad? You see how hypocritical you are? See, if I were to criticize this film saying, oh God, it's a woman. Oh, a woman can't lead anything. Oh God. You would rightfully call me a sexist. And yet when you do it from the opposite way saying, oh, this movie's going to be good because it's a woman. It's a woman. You're doing the same exact thing. So stop the hypocrisy here. And yes, releasing this film early to Avengers Endgame is a dangerous thing. But then that leads us to the question, why? Is it just to get people prepped for Endgame? I would say no, because you don't need to prep it. Look at how many people have watched that Endgame trailer. That hype did not come from Captain Marvel trailers. I can tell you that for a fact. That came from the fact that Infinity War ended on such a great note and has led to this culmination of 21 films. Endgame was going to sell tickets no matter what. So you really can't argue from a financial standpoint, this is there to set it up. So then why else would you put this film a month away? I would not be surprised if the reason why is because they knew if they released this in December against Aquaman, it wouldn't have done as well. Now that would have been a fight I would have loved to have seen. If you had had Aquaman versus Captain Marvel, man versus woman, now that would have been interesting, because then you would have seen Aquaman whoop Captain Marvel's ass. And then not only would you have a DCU film outdoing a Marvel film, but then you would have the whole narrative of, oh my gosh, that's because everyone in the audience is just sexist. And that would have been hilarious to see. But anyway, guys, what are y'all's thoughts on this? Like, seriously, I'm not surprised that they're doing this, because I think that they probably looked at those pre-sales and said, oh, well, they're not really as good as they were in the first, like, 24 hours. So, yeah, it's too close, guys. It's not going to make as much. I've already told you this. This movie has a cap. This movie's cap is between 400 and 600 million worldwide. I think it had 450 and 650 worldwide total. Again, that's domestic and foreign market. And I stand by those numbers. And the reason why is because it's going to make money because it is an MCU film. That is almost essentially guaranteed. It's probably going to be a decent B-level movie, but of course the critics are going to try and act like it's the second coming of Christ once again, just like with Black Panther. But at the end of the day, how well this film does is going to depend on, is it good enough to move past all the nonsense that the media has given out, that Brie Larson has given out, and all this other stuff that's been going on? How well is it going to fare in that week 2? But also, is it going to make enough in the first 2 weekends to be able to get and stand the end game? Because the problem is that whatever it makes in those first 2 weeks is the most it's going to make, because a week or two later you get Endgame, and Endgame is going to make all the monies, and I don't know if there's going to be anything left over for Captain Marvel at that point. So it's going to be interesting to see this play out. But guys, I would love to hear your comments about it. Sorry I went a little bit long, but I wanted not only to talk about the box office for this weekend, but also to talk about this, because it is just so interesting that they are starting already to do this, this game of, oh my gosh, like it's already too soon, and oh my gosh, it's not going to make enough money. It's so interesting to see this happen. But anyway, guys, what are y'all's thoughts on this? Have you seen Glass? Do you think that Glass is getting a bad rap from critics? Again, critics' ratings like 30% or so on Rotten Tomatoes. Not very good, but yet people are still going to see it. It's already profitable, guys. Glass is already profitable. Upside, not quite profitable yet, but I think it might, by the end of its run, be there. Dragon Ball Super Broly is doing very well at the box office too. Aquaman is well on its way to outpace Last Jedi and Black Panther, and of course, Whammon. But I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this video, smash that like button, give us all a thumbs up and a subscribe. And guys, seriously, check out the Geeks and Gamers channel's other content, because there's other awesome stuff here. But also, go check out my channel as well at Odin's Movie Blog. I do videos like this with box office, maybe not as in as much detail, but also I cover a lot of other stuff with Marvel, Star Wars, movies in general, and it's a lot of fun. So anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Have a great day, and as always, God bless.